India's position within the BRICS framework demonstrates the complexity of contemporary multilateral engagement, where countries maintain simultaneous relationships across different institutional arrangements and strategic partnerships. Recent developments in India's trade relationships, energy policies, and diplomatic positioning reveal tensions between multilateral bloc participation and bilateral strategic interests. These dynamics reflect broader questions about institutional cohesion in multipolar groupings and the sustainability of alternative international frameworks, alongside traditional alliance structures. This analysis will examine three key dimensions of India's strategic positioning. First, we will assess India's documented economic and diplomatic relationships within BRICS alongside its engagement with Western partners. Second, we will analyze the structural factors that create tensions between multilateral bloc participation and independent foreign policy objectives. Third, we will explore the implications of these dynamics for BRICS institutional development and broader patterns of international cooperation. The factual foundation begins with India's participation in BRICS since the grouping's expansion in 2010, alongside consistent maintenance of strategic partnerships with the United States, European Union, and other Western nations. This approach reflects India's stated policy of multi-alignment, which emphasizes maintaining strategic autonomy while pursuing beneficial relationships across different international frameworks. Indian officials have consistently characterized this approach as principled non-alignment updated for contemporary multipolar conditions. Trade relationship data demonstrates India's economic engagement across diverse partnerships. India maintains substantial trade volumes with China despite political tensions, significant energy imports from Russia, and growing economic ties with Brazil and South Africa within the BRICS framework. Simultaneously, India has expanded trade relationships with the United States, European Union, and Indo-Pacific partners through various bilateral and multilateral agreements. Recent tariff negotiations with the United States represent one component of India's broader trade policy approach that seeks to maximize economic benefits while maintaining strategic flexibility. These discussions address specific sectors and products rather than comprehensive trade agreements, reflecting careful calibration of economic engagement to avoid exclusive arrangements that might constrain other relationships. The scope and timing of these negotiations occur alongside India's participation in BRICS economic cooperation initiatives. Energy policy provides concrete examples of how strategic considerations affect economic relationships. India's energy import patterns reflect both economic optimization and geopolitical risk management. Russian energy purchases increased significantly during periods when market conditions offered substantial cost advantages, while also maintaining diversified supply relationships with Middle Eastern and other suppliers to avoid excessive dependence on any single source. The strategic context involves India's assessment of its regional security environment and long-term economic development requirements. Border tensions with China, Pakistan relations, and regional maritime security concerns affect Indian calculations regarding alliance relationships and strategic partnerships. These security considerations intersect with economic opportunities in complex ways that require balancing immediate benefits against longer-term strategic risks. BRICS institutional development has progressed through multiple summit meetings and specific cooperation initiatives, including the New Development Bank, Contingent Reserve Arrangement, and various sectoral cooperation frameworks. However, the effectiveness of these institutions depends on member commitment and coordination that may compete with other international engagement priorities. The success of BRICS initiatives requires sustained political commitment, alongside technical cooperation across diverse economic and political systems. The core analytical question centers on how countries can effectively participate in multilateral frameworks while maintaining strategic autonomy and diverse international relationships. Traditional alliance theory assumes some degree of exclusive commitment or preferential treatment for alliance partners, but contemporary international conditions may require more flexible institutional arrangements that accommodate multiple simultaneous partnerships. The mechanism through which multi-alignment strategies create institutional tensions operates through competing demands for policy, coordination, and resource allocation. Participation in BRICS economic initiatives may require policy positions that conflict with Western partnership priorities, while bilateral relationships with non-BRICS partners may limit flexibility in multilateral coordination. The management of these tensions requires careful diplomatic coordination and clear communication about policy priorities. China-India relations within BRICS reflect broader strategic competition that affects multilateral cooperation effectiveness. Border disputes, strategic rivalry in the Indian Ocean region, and economic competition create structural tensions that complicate coordination on shared objectives. These bilateral tensions affect BRICS institutional development by limiting the scope of cooperation and creating uncertainty about long-term commitment levels. Economic integration patterns within BRICS face challenges from different development levels, varying economic systems and competing trade relationships outside the grouping. Unlike regional trading blocs with geographic proximity and similar development levels, BRICS encompasses diverse economies with different comparative advantages and integration challenges. The success of economic cooperation depends on identifying areas of mutual benefit that do not require extensive economic policy coordination. The key variable here often receives insufficient attention in analyses of multilateral institutions. The sustainability of alternative international frameworks depends on their ability to provide concrete benefits that exceed the opportunity costs of exclusive arrangements with other partners. If BRICS participation constrains beneficial relationships elsewhere without providing compensating advantages, member commitment will naturally erode regardless of political declarations. Regional security considerations create additional complexity for India's BRICS participation where other members maintain relationships with countries that India views as potential security threats. Chinese support for Pakistan and Russian arms sales to various regional actors create situations where BRICS cooperation may indirectly support activities that conflict with Indian security interests. This creates constraints on institutional integration depth where security concerns limit the extent of cooperation possible within multilateral frameworks. India's strategic autonomy requirements may prevent the level of coordination necessary for effective institutional development, while other members face similar constraints based on their own security and economic priorities. Now, the second-order effects become apparent in broader patterns of institutional competition and international cooperation evolution. The success or failure of flexible multilateral arrangements like BRICS affects expectations regarding alternative international frameworks and their viability compared to traditional alliance structures. Indian navigation of competing institutional demands provides precedents for other middle powers facing similar strategic choices. The precedent established by multi-alignment strategies affects international institutional design and expectations regarding member commitment levels. Success in maintaining beneficial relationships across different frameworks could encourage more flexible institutional arrangements, while failure might reinforce preferences for more exclusive alliance structures with higher commitment requirements. Western strategic responses to alternative multilateral frameworks include both competitive and cooperative elements designed to maintain existing institutional advantages while adapting to multipolar conditions. The effectiveness of strategies aimed at maintaining Western institutional primacy depends on their ability to provide superior benefits compared to alternative arrangements while accommodating diverse partner priorities. Economic competition between different institutional frameworks creates dynamic conditions where relative benefits shift based on global economic conditions, policy changes, and member state priorities. The competitiveness of BRICS economic initiatives depends on their ability to provide financing, market access, and development support that competes effectively with Western alternatives. The institutional learning process within BRICS involves adapting cooperation mechanisms to accommodate member diversity while maintaining organizational effectiveness. This requires developing new approaches to multilateral coordination that differ from existing international organizations designed for more homogeneous membership and exclusive commitment patterns. We can identify three plausible scenarios for BRICS: institutional evolution based on current member behavior patterns and structural constraints. The flexible cooperation scenario involves successful adaptation to member diversity through limited scope cooperation that provides concrete benefits without requiring extensive policy coordination. This outcome accommodates different strategic priorities while maintaining institutional relevance. Early indicators for this scenario include successful implementation of specific cooperation projects, maintained member participation despite bilateral tensions, and development of new cooperation mechanisms that work around rather than resolve fundamental disagreements. Economic benefits from institutional participation that exceed opportunity costs of alternative arrangements would support continued engagement. The institutional weakening scenario emerges if member commitments decline due to competing priorities or insufficient benefits from cooperation. This could result from bilateral relationship deterioration that spills over into multilateral cooperation, economic opportunities elsewhere that provide better alternatives to BRICS arrangements, or domestic political changes that reduce support for alternative international frameworks. Key indicators include reduced participation in BRICS initiatives, delayed implementation of agreed cooperation projects, or explicit statements questioning institutional effectiveness. Members pursuing exclusive relationships with partners outside BRICS that conflict with multilateral cooperation would signal movement toward institutional marginalization. The enhanced integration scenario involves successful resolution of major bilateral tensions and development of deeper cooperation mechanisms that provide substantial benefits to all members. This outcome would require significant political commitment to prioritize multilateral cooperation over competing bilateral relationships and economic arrangements. Indicators for this scenario include resolution of China-India border tensions, expanded economic integration through trade and investment agreements, and successful operation of BRICS financial institutions that provide competitive alternatives to Western arrangements. Joint infrastructure projects and technology cooperation that creates mutual dependencies would demonstrate enhanced integration commitment. Each scenario carries distinct implications for global institutional architecture and strategic competition patterns. Flexible cooperation would demonstrate the viability of alternative multilateral arrangements, while highlighting their limitations compared to more integrated frameworks. This outcome could encourage similar institutional experimentation elsewhere while maintaining existing international system structures. Institutional weakening would validate concerns about alternative framework sustainability and potentially strengthen existing Western-led institutions through reduced competition. This outcome might discourage other attempts at alternative institutional development while reinforcing traditional alliance patterns. Enhanced integration would represent successful challenge to Western institutional primacy and could accelerate development of alternative international frameworks. This outcome would demonstrate the feasibility of non-Western multilateral cooperation and potentially encourage other countries to pursue similar alternative arrangements. Our analysis reveals several confirmed patterns and areas requiring continued monitoring. India's multi-alignment strategy reflects broader trends where middle powers seek to maximize strategic autonomy through diversified international relationships rather than exclusive alliance commitments. The tension between multilateral institutional participation and bilateral strategic interests affects all major powers operating across different international frameworks. The effectiveness of alternative multilateral arrangements depends on their ability to provide concrete benefits that justify the coordination costs and opportunity costs of alternative arrangements. BRICS institutional development faces structural challenges from member diversity and competing priorities that require innovative approaches to multilateral cooperation. However, the continued expansion of BRICS membership and institutional development indicates persistent demand for alternative international frameworks despite coordination challenges. The success of flexible cooperation models could influence broader international institutional evolution toward more accommodating arrangements that reflect multipolar conditions. We will continue tracking confirmed policy changes, institutional cooperation outcomes, and bilateral relationship developments as they affect multilateral engagement patterns. The evolution of alternative international frameworks provides insights into contemporary challenges of institutional competition and cooperation in multipolar international systems.